Chapter 1. The Forgotten Library. In a small and peaceful town, surrounded by beautiful green hills, there stood an old library. It was a quiet, forgotten place that most people ignored. Its walls were covered in ivy, and the doors creaked loudly whenever someone opened them. People in the town walked by without paying much attention to the library because they were too busy with their lives. But for Emma, a 12-year-old girl with a curious mind, the library was like stepping into a magical world. She loved everything about it. The smell of the old books, the way the sunlight shone through the windows and lit up the dusty shelves, and the quiet feeling of adventure waiting to be discovered. Every Saturday, Emma and her grandfather went to the library together. Her grandfather loved books just as much as she did, maybe even more. He always said, "Books are treasure chests. Each one is filled with secrets, adventures, and wisdom. All you have to do is open them." Emma didn't completely understand what her grandfather meant by wisdom, but she was captivated by the idea of adventures hidden inside books. She could pick up a story and instantly be transported to another world. Through her books, Emma explored deep jungles, climbed snowy mountains, and solved the most exciting mysteries. And she did it all without leaving her favorite chair in the library. For Emma, the library wasn't just a building filled with books. It was a place where her imagination could run wild, where anything was possible, and where she felt truly happy. The rest of the town might have ignored the old library, but to Emma, it was a treasure chest, just waiting to be opened. Her Saturdays at the library were the highlight of her week. As soon as she stepped inside, she felt like she was stepping into a new world. The books whispered stories to her, promising her adventures she couldn't resist. This magical bond Emma shared with the library was thanks to her grandfather. He had shown her how amazing books could be, and together they spent hours exploring their imaginations. Through his stories and the books they read, Emma learned that the world was much bigger than her small town. She realized that books could take her to faraway places, introduce her to brave characters, and teach her things she couldn't learn anywhere else. Even though Emma was young, she felt like she had already traveled the world, thanks to her library. It didn't matter that most people ignored it or that the shelves were dusty. To Emma, the library was alive with possibilities, and she couldn't wait to see where her next adventure would take her. And so, every Saturday, Emma and her grandfather continued their ritual, exploring the endless treasure troves of stories, adventures, and secrets that the old library held. For Emma, it was clear. The library wasn't just a place for books. It was a doorway to a world of endless imagination. Chapter 2. The Struggle to Read One. Saturday, something felt different for Emma. Her usual excitement about going to the library was replaced with worry. Her grandfather, her reading buddy and best friend, wasn't coming with her this time. He had caught a cold and needed to stay home to rest. Emma tried to be brave as she walked to the library alone. The familiar creak of the doors welcomed her, but without her grandfather by her side, the library felt a little less magical. She wandered through the aisles, hoping to find something exciting to take her mind off her worries. As she explored, something caught her eye. A dusty book sitting on a high shelf. It looked like it hadn't been touched in years. The cover was a deep, dark blue, with golden letters that shimmered in the sunlight. It read, "The World Beyond Words." The title alone made Emma curious. What kind of world could exist beyond words? Emma couldn't resist. She dragged over a stool, climbed up carefully, and pulled the book from the shelf. A small puff of dust rose as she opened it. But as soon as she flipped through the first few pages, Emma realized this book was nothing like the ones she usually read. The sentences were long, and the words were strange. Words she had never seen before. They looked complicated and hard to pronounce. Emma tried her best to read them aloud, but her tongue stumbled. She couldn't make sense of the story, and her frustration began to grow. "Why is this so hard?" she thought, her face turning red. Reading had always been fun for her, but this book felt more like a puzzle with missing pieces. She read the same sentences over and over, hoping they would make sense, but they didn't. Emma's head started to ache. For the first time, she felt like giving up on a book. She closed it with a loud sigh and stared at the cover. "Maybe this book isn't for me," she thought sadly. Sitting alone in the quiet library, Emma felt defeated. Books had always been her escape, her adventure and her joy. But now this book had made her feel small, like she wasn't smart enough to understand its secrets. Even though Emma was upset, something about the book still intrigued her. It seemed special, almost magical. She wanted to understand it, but the words felt like walls she couldn't climb. As Emma put the book down on her lap, she glanced around the library. She thought about her grandfather and how he always said books were treasure chests. Was this one just locked too tightly? Emma didn't know it yet, but this struggle with the book was only the beginning of a new adventure, one that would challenge her in ways she hadn't experienced before. The story inside The World Beyond Words wasn't just hidden in its pages. It was also hidden in Emma's determination to keep trying. Chapter 3. The Wise Librarian. Emma sat in the quiet library, staring at the confusing book in her hands. She felt like it was mocking her, its golden title shining brightly, reminding her of her struggle. Frustrated and ready to give up, she started closing it when a voice interrupted her. "Having trouble, dear?" Emma looked up to see Mrs. Baker, the librarian. Mrs. Baker was an older woman with soft, kind eyes and glasses that always seemed to be slipping down her nose. She had worked at the library for as long as Emma could remember and was like the guardian of the stories on the shelves. Emma sighed and held up the book. "This one is too hard. I don't think I can read it." Mrs. Baker sat down beside her and smiled. "I understand how you feel. When I was your age, I had trouble with reading too. It felt like every book was full of impossible words." Emma blinked in surprise. "You did? But you're the librarian. You must know everything about books." Mrs. Baker chuckled. "Not at first. When I was a little girl, reading felt like climbing a mountain. I couldn't get through a single page without getting frustrated. But then I learned a little secret. Emma leaned forward, curious. What secret? Mrs. Baker's eyes twinkled. The secret is that reading makes your mind stronger. The more you practice, the easier it gets. It's like exercising your brain. You wouldn't run a marathon without training, right? It's the same with reading. You start small, and little by little, you get better. Emma thought about what Mrs. Baker had said. She had never thought of reading as training for her brain before. But what if the book is too hard like this one? Emma asked, glancing at the world beyond words. That's when you take a step back and start with something simpler, Mrs. Baker explained. She reached over to a nearby shelf and pulled out a smaller book with colorful illustrations on the cover. Try this one. It's not as complicated, but it's just as fun. One step at a time, and soon you'll be ready for the bigger challenges. Emma hesitated. She didn't like the idea of giving up on the golden book, but Mrs. Baker's words made sense. Maybe she didn't need to understand everything right away. Mrs. Baker patted her hand. Remember, Emma, it's not about being perfect. It's about not giving up. Every word you read is like taking another step toward the top of the mountain. And one day, when you look back, you'll see just how far you've climbed. Emma smiled for the first time that day. Mrs. Baker's encouragement felt like a warm hug, and for the first time she believed that maybe she could do it. If not today, then someday. With the simpler book in her hands, Emma stood up, ready to give it a try. As she left the library, she glanced back at the world beyond words. I'll come back for you, she whispered to the golden book, and deep down, she knew she would. Chapter 4. The Journey Begins. Emma decided to follow Mrs. Baker's advice and start reading for just 10 minutes each night. At first, it was slow and a bit frustrating. Some of the words were tricky, and she had to stop often to look them up or ask her grandfather for help when he was feeling better. But Emma didn't give up. She knew she had to be patient and keep trying. As the days passed, Emma noticed something amazing. Reading didn't feel as hard as before. She began to understand more words, and soon she was able to read for longer periods. The more she read, the better she got. She found herself diving into books about faraway places, exciting adventures, and brave heroes. She loved learning about new ideas and stories that took her to different worlds. One day, Emma decided to pick up The World Beyond Words again. She had been avoiding it for a while because it seemed too difficult. But this time, when she opened the book, it wasn't as confusing. The sentences were still a little long, but they made more sense. Emma could understand what was happening in the story. She felt proud of herself as she read the pages, amazed at how much she had improved. It wasn't just about reading the words anymore. It was about understanding and enjoying the story. Emma realized that all her hard work was paying off. She had gone from struggling with every word to reading confidently, and she couldn't wait to see where her reading journey would take her next. Chapter 5. Why Reading Matters. As Emma grew older, she began to realize that reading had changed her life in ways she hadn't expected. It wasn't just about reading stories anymore. It was about everything she had learned and how it made her feel. Understanding people. One of the biggest changes Emma noticed was how much better she became at understanding people. Through books, she had walked in the shoes of so many different characters. She had seen the world through the eyes of kings, farmers, explorers, inventors, and even animals. Every book taught her something new about different ways of life, different feelings, and different problems. This helped her relate better to her friends, family, and even strangers. When arguments came up, Emma knew how to listen and understand other points of view because she had read so many stories about different lives and struggles. She could see things from someone else's perspective, which made her a better friend and a better listener. Learning New Things books also opened Emma's eyes to the wonders of the world. She had always been curious, but through reading, she learned about so many new things. Books taught her about history, science, art, and so much more. She learned how stars are born in the sky, why rainbows form after it rains, and even how to bake a cake by reading a cookbook. Each book was like a key that unlocked a new door of knowledge. Emma was amazed at how much she could learn just by reading. Building confidence. As Emma read more, she found that she became more confident in herself. When she spoke in class or had discussions with her friends, her words flowed more easily. She knew more about a variety of topics, and this made her feel proud. Her growing knowledge made her more comfortable in conversations, and soon she was able to share her thoughts with others without feeling nervous. She realized that the more she read, the more she had to say, and that made her feel strong and sure of herself. Escaping stress. On days when Emma felt sad or stressed, books became her escape. They were her safe place where she could leave her worries behind. She could dive into a world where anything was possible, where she could go on adventures, solve mysteries, or even live in a magical kingdom. Books allowed her to forget about her problems, even if just for a little while. In those pages, Emma found comfort and a chance to breathe. Emma learned that reading wasn't just about enjoying stories. It was about growing as a person. It helped her understand people better, learn new things, feel more confident, and find peace when life got tough. Through reading, Emma had found a way to live a fuller, richer life. And she knew that it would always be a part of who she was. Chapter 6. The Power of Stories. One summer, Emma decided to enter a writing contest at her school. She was excited but nervous about the idea of sharing her story with others. After thinking for a while, she wrote a story about a young girl who discovers a magical library that could transport her to other worlds. Emma loved the idea of a place where anything was possible, just like the library she cherished. She poured her imagination into the story, and when it was finished, she submitted it to the contest. To her surprise, Emma won first prize. She was thrilled, but also a little nervous. As part of her prize, She was invited to read her story aloud at the town fair. Standing in front of a big crowd at the fair, Emma held her paper, feeling her heart race. She had never read her work aloud to so many people before. Her hands shook, and her stomach fluttered with nerves. But then, as she looked out at the crowd, Emma remembered everything she had learned from books. How stories had the power to transport her, to teach her, to help her understand the world better. She took a deep breath, smiled, and began to read her story. The audience was completely silent, hanging on every word. As Emma read about the magical library and the incredible adventures the young girl had, she could see people leaning forward, captivated by her words. It felt like the crowd was living the story with her. When Emma finished, the audience erupted into applause. She was filled with joy and relief. That moment was special, and Emma realized something important. Stories have the power to connect people. By sharing her story, she had created a bond with everyone who listened. It didn't matter that they were all different people, with different lives. For a moment, they were all united by the magic of her words. Emma understood now that stories could bring people together in ways she hadn't imagined. Chapter 7. The library's secret years passed, and Emma grew up to become the librarian of the old library that had once been so special to her. She was excited to take care of the place that had given her so much. Emma worked hard to fix up the library. She painted the walls a warm, inviting color, repaired the creaky doors, and added new books to the shelves. Slowly, children began visiting the library just like she once had, eager to discover the magic of reading. Emma loved seeing the young faces light up as they picked out books, just like she had done all those years ago. But sometimes she noticed the children struggling with reading, just like she had when she was younger. She would walk over to them, smile, and share the same advice that Mrs. Baker had given her. "Reading is exercise for your brain," Emma would say kindly. "Start small, and soon you'll be unstoppable." The words were so simple, yet they were filled with wisdom. Emma had learned the truth of them through her own journey, and she knew they could help the children just as they had helped her. One day, a little boy came into the library and wandered over to the same dusty book that Emma had once struggled with, The World Beyond Words. He picked it up, looked at the cover, and turned it in his hands. With a worried frown, he looked up at Emma and asked, "This book looks hard. Can I read it someday?" Emma smiled, remembering her own frustration with the book years ago. She kneeled down to his level and nodded. "Yes, you can. And when you do, it might just change your life." Emma knew that someday, when he was ready, he would discover the power of reading just as she had. The same book that had once seemed impossible would become an adventure, one that would help him grow, learn, and see the world in a new way. As Emma watched the boy carefully place the book back on the shelf, she felt a deep sense of connection to the library, to the books, and to all the children who would find their own paths through reading. The library's secret was not just in the pages of the books. It was in the journey they took, the lessons learned, and the way reading could change lives. Epilogue: The Endless Adventure. As Emma's life unfolded, she became a living example of why reading truly matters. It wasn't just about being able to understand the words on a page. It was about everything those words opened up. Reading helped Emma unlock doors to new worlds, new ideas, and new possibilities. Each book she read took her on a different adventure, teaching her more about life and about herself. Through reading, Emma learned to dream bigger. She began to believe that anything was possible. Books opened her mind to new ideas and new ways of thinking, helping her to think deeper and look at the world from different perspectives. Whether she was reading about history, science, or fiction, each story gave her more tools to understand the world and make sense of her own life. But the power of reading didn't stop there. Emma found that reading helped her connect with people in ways she never thought possible. She could relate to others, share ideas, and communicate better because she had learned so much through books. Reading taught her empathy, understanding, and how to engage with the world around her. And even though Emma had achieved so much in her life, she knew the adventure would never truly end as long as there were books. There would always be new stories to discover, new things to learn, and new people to meet through the pages of a book. For Emma, the journey of reading was endless. Whenever someone asked her why they should read, Emma would smile and give the same answer she had learned to believe in with all her heart. Because every book is a treasure chest, and you never know what treasure you'll find. Emma knew that reading held the key to endless adventures, and every book was a new opportunity waiting to be discovered.